When it comes to localizations, Animal Crossing is one of the most praised games of all time, mostly due to the extensive dialogue that had to be translated between languages. Not only is there a baffling amount of words in each game's script, they also contain dynamic dialogue systems and unique ways of rendering conversations, which warrants a more detailed analysis. The vast majority of Animal Crossing's dialogue text is stored in a single file. Looking in this file, there are over 2.5 million characters, equating to around 450,000 words when just looking at the English text. All of the dialogue in this mega file is partitioned into over 20,000 offsets, all of which are indexed in a separate table file. Essentially, all of the text in this game works by referencing this table, which then points to the appropriate dialogue for the situation. For example, if I catch a fish, like the Arapaima, the game will point to dialogue entry 2FD0 in this file, which maps to the Arapaima catching text. If it's easier to understand, the text in this game kinda works as if it's all stored in one giant array. A bit of a side tangent, but this is the precise reason why hacking the game to catch the whale will bring up the Able Sisters dialogue. Internally, the whale is indexed one higher than the Arapaima, so its catching text is also indexed one higher. And sure enough, the text that appears one index higher than the Arapaima maps to the Able Sisters greeting text. Anyways, if you ever open this massive message file in a plaintext editor, you'll notice that there are a lot of unreadable characters scattered between all of the dialogue. These are actually special formatting tags that aren't in plain ASCII, and thus require a special decoder to interpret. I've talked about these before, but these tags are known as control characters, and are essentially encoded commands embedded within the text. As an example, let's take a look at this sequence here from the start of the game. Rover goes into the back room on the train and calls Tom Nook. This seems like a rather simplistic sequence, but if we decode the actual script, the dialogue looks like this. You can see that this text is loaded with control commands that dictate how the text is rendered and how the conversation flows. This is an example of one of the more lengthy dialogue sequences, but the entire game works like this. Now, this actually isn't too uncommon in video games, and you'll see variable injection all the time in dialogue, such as whenever a character mentions your player inputted name. However, Animal Crossing uses it to an extensive degree, handling everything from character expressions, text colors, background music, dynamic pausing, and so on, all with embedded control commands. This is not exclusive to the GameCube game either. Pretty much all Animal Crossing games use a similar setup for handling dialogue. Notably, tens of thousands of these control commands are embedded throughout the script, which is incredibly impressive. So not only did the localizers have to translate all of the Japanese text, they also had to update the control commands to handle specific conversations. It's no wonder Iwata initially laughed at the idea of bringing this game to the West. And I'm sure localizing this script took many long days at the work desk. Oh, and speaking of desks, I'd like to quickly thank this video's sponsor, FlexiSpot. FlexiSpot previously sent me their E7 Plus standing desk, and after using it daily for over a year now, it has been the most sturdy and versatile desk that I have ever used. With a 540-pound weight capacity and an adjustable height to over 4 feet, this desk has been a game changer for my setup. I ended up choosing a rather large desktop, and even with all this space, the desk remains stable no matter what, all thanks to the amazing 4-leg support. I've also been slowly learning to play piano, and this desk not only fits the length of a full keyboard, but also remains stable enough to handle intense playing. Of course, as a standing desk, the height can be adjusted for health benefits and help prevent you from sitting all the time. FlexiSpot also sent me their incline walking treadmill, which easily slots under the desk and allows you to work, or game, all while getting your steps in. The treadmill features several incline levels and speeds, and even a speaker with Bluetooth audio connection. So yes, you can connect it to your Switch and get your morning aerobics on alongside your villagers. FlexiSpot is currently hosting their yearly mega sale, and compared to other competitors, their prices offer pretty incredible value. If you're in the market for their products or a new desk, you can follow the link in the description and use code YTE7P50 to get $50 off their E7 Plus standing desk. Back to Animal Crossing's script, you can also find a lot of rare and unused dialogue in this message file. There's a few testing lines at the beginning which are left untranslated from Japanese. When rendered, all of these just trigger various villager reactions depending on the emotion described. Perhaps more interesting, a lot of checks occur on boot up to ensure the game can run properly. This includes things like testing your GameCube's internal clock and seeing if your memory card is corrupted. In a case where something isn't working properly, KK Slider has a lot of unique dialogue describing the problems. If your GameCube's internal clock is busted, the game will still allow you to play, and KK Slider will now give you the option to set the time at the start of every session. In the case that you have a Japanese memory card plugged into a North American system, KK Slider has unique dialogue mentioning that it's incompatible. And if your memory card just has corrupted data on it, KK Slider will give you the option to delete the corrupted data. However, there's actually a failsafe when it checks again, and if you somehow repair your corrupted memory card during this dialogue, KK will have a surprised reaction, tells you that your memory card is working now, and apologizes for being such a flake. They really thought of everything. Naturally, branching dialogue like I just described relies on a lot of conditional checks, which is pretty standard stuff. While Animal Crossing might not do anything special, it really succeeds by just having such a vast amount of this conditional dialogue. Fans of the series know that villagers are categorized into different personality types, and all of them have their own unique pools of dialogue. For example, Bob, who is a lazy villager, will select from different dialogue options than, say, Aurora, who is a normal villager. This keeps villager conversations nice and varied, and intends to give each personality different dialects and vocabulary. On top of this, Animal Crossing also has a hidden friendship system, which opens up even more dialogue options as you grow closer to each villager. And even further, each villager can also have different tempers depending on when you talk to them, which further impacts their animation and dialogue. And on top of all these systems, there is a lot of chance dialogue depending on things like the weather, time of day, and so on and so on. The amount of things that villagers can comment on and remember is actually quite impressive, and the average player would struggle to see the majority of these lines. For example, there's dialogue that has a chance to trigger if the player has never changed the town tune before, as well as dialogue for when the player changes it a lot. And there's even extremely rude dialogue spoken by snooty villagers that tell you that they hate the town tune. They even go as far as to say,
"I highly doubt you have a talented bone in your body, but you seem to be able to run fast, so be a deer and go change that horrible music, would you?"
Now, some people might be put off by this, but a lot of Animal Crossing fans actually praise the original game for having the gall to give villagers such rude dialogue. If you're only used to the newer titles like New Leaf or New Horizons, you'd be hard-pressed to find villager dialogue that's anywhere near as rude as some of the lines found here. Due to this, a lot of people criticize New Horizons for having repetitive, vanilla, and stale dialogue compared to the GameCube game. While that may be true to an extent, the real reason why New Horizons dialogue feels this way mostly comes down to two specific things. First is that the script is filled with conditional lines that only trigger in hyper-specific situations. I kid you not, there are hundreds of unique lines just for talking to villagers when they're in different rooms of the museum, which is something that rarely happens. Instead, 99% of all conversations in this game occur outside under normal conditions, which pulls from a much more limited selection of lines. The second problem is that New Horizons, by design, allows you to pick and choose which villagers you want to keep in your town, and you can prevent villagers from moving out. This allows players to simply keep their favorite villagers around, which often share the same personality, and thus they will all pull from the same dialogue. Contrarily, the original GameCube game was designed with the exact opposite philosophy, and you'll notice the game constantly moving villagers in and out to keep your residents varied. In fact, the game even remembers which villager personality type has been the most abundant in your town, and then specifically chooses a different one when picking a new villager to move in. In this fashion, the GameCube game forcibly keeps your town diverse, and thus allows you to experience a lot more varied dialogue. While I do tend to glorify the systems of the original game, it's not like the actual script does anything that the other games don't. I will say that Wild World and City Folk are a bit special, with their impressive drama system that's tied to special NPCs. In these games, there are entire scripted events that play out over several days, which introduce a lot of memorable dialogue and lore. For example, in Wild World, there's a special drama event related to the Able sisters, during which Sable is revealed to act cold towards people from the city, and has trouble trusting city folk. This mistrust is later explained in a city folk drama where Label, or Labelle, is introduced as a third Able sister who left Sable behind for the city after their parents died, which helps explain Sable's distaste for folks from the city. This is an example of pretty awesome, deeper dialogue in the Animal Crossing series that a lot of people probably didn't even know existed just because they never ran into the encounter. In true Animal Crossing fashion, a lot of these events are locked behind very specific conditions. In Wild World, in order to hear all the scripted dramas, you would need to play on very specific, exact dates. There is a drama like this for every month, so a lot of effort went into these, but unless you talk to every character daily for a whole year, it's unlikely that you would ever experience them all, which could be argued is the actual point. Finally, I want to touch briefly on New Leaf. It doesn't really do anything too different from other games, but it remains the most impressive to me just due to the sheer length of its script. So, just how many words are we talking about here? Well... Standing tall around a whopping 1.1 million words, the entire script of New Leaf is pretty lengthy. In fact, its length beats out not only the Holy Bible, but also the length of all Harry Potter books combined. Unlike the GameCube game, all of this dialogue is spread out over thousands of files. The script of New Leaf is naturally one of the most lengthy in all of gaming, only really beaten out by titles like visual novels or huge, massive-scale RPGs like Baldur's Gate. Not bad for a wholesome little game about animals. Hopefully this video gave a little insight and appreciation towards the immense dialogue found in these games. Special thanks to Cuyler and Aeon for publishing their text editing tools, which made it a lot easier to parse through the dialogue. Further thank you to Balloon Monsoon on Reddit, who wrote a very nice post about New Leaf's script, which caught my attention when researching this video. And of course, big shoutouts to my Patreon and YouTube members, including Lunascape, Mithra, Dylan Trudeau, Japan Eat, Tammy's Head, Silly Marina, Villager, Terumi, Pitch01, Kai D, Comfy Boy 404, Bobby Nard, Puff, Goose Fart, Highly in Descent, Calidor, Lock and Key 24, Wesley Witz, Retro Reversing, Jesse RNDM, Kydrin, Arbor Days, insert clever username here, Sned6772, HPR, Dimitri, Magical Fishing, Olive Garden, and Poulet Furtif. And of course, thank you all for watching. Until next time.